Hello everyone, I am Sakshi Kothari from Lawminds with a new topic: what is the legal age of consent? So, in common parlance, the consent is an act done deliberately and by free will. It involves a deliberate exercise of intelligence based on the knowledge of the significance and the moral effect of the act. Basically, it consists of three things: physical power, mental power, and free use of them. Consent means agreeing or choosing to engage in sexual activities with another person. It can be expressed through the words, gestures, and any form of verbal communication and non-verbal communication. The age of consent is the age at which a person is seen by law as competent to sexual acts. Now, let us come to the legislative framework of the age of consent. There are three basic legislations which dealt with the age of consent. First is the Indian Majority Act 1875. It is one of the significant piece of legislation that determines the age of which individuals in India attain the status of majority and consequently become capable of exercising certain legal rights and responsibility. It primarily addresses the attainment of majority and not specifically the age of consent for sexual activities. This act sets a age at which the individuals are considered to be legally competent to make the decisions and exercise various rights, such as entering into the contracts, owning a property, and making legal decisions. According to this act, a person in India becomes a major when he attains the age of 18 years. Second is the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, where the consent known to be given under a fear of misconception as per the section 28 of this new bill. The consent is not said to be consent when it is given due to the fear of injury. Second is due to the mistake of fact. Third is the person who knows or who has the reasons to believe that consent is given due to fear of injury or mistake of fact. Fourth is the consent of insane person. Consent is given by a person unsound mind or intoxication who is unable to understand the nature and consequence of that consent. The fifth is the consent of child, where the consent is given by the person whose age is less than 12 years old. Now let us come to the age of consent for the sexual activities. As the age of consent for sexual activities in India has been addressed in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 under the section 63, which talks about rape, and in which the explanation says that the consent means an unequivocable voluntary agreement when the woman by words, gestures, or any form of verbal or non-verbal communication communicates the willingness to participate in a specific sexual act. So let us understand that for the consent of sexual intercourse in India is 18 years, and this means engaging in the sexual activities with the individual below the age of 18 even with a consent can be considered as a criminal offense. Now let us talk about the third legislative framework, that is the POSCO Act 2012. Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which has been enacted in the year 2012, with the act specifically addresses the sexual offences against children under the age of 18 and provides a comprehensive legal framework for their protection. Now let us talk about the various forms of consent. Basically, there are 8 forms of consent. First is the informed and voluntary consent. The consent must be informed and voluntary, which means the individual must understand the nature of activity and its potential consequences and freely agree to participate without any form of coercion, manipulation, or threat. Second is the capacity to consent. The legal framework usually considers an individual's mental capacity to consent. This involves assessing whether the person involved is capable of understanding the implications of their actions due to the factors such as the age, cognitive abilities, and mental state. Third is the explicit consent. Some jurisdictions require the explicit, which means an affirmative consent, that the individuals clearly expresses their willingness to participate in a particular sexual activity. Silence or lack of resistance is not considered an consent. Fourth is talks about the express consent, which talks about the direct consent. Like when someone explicitly agree to the collection, use or sharing of their personal data. Like for example, whenever you open a website, the website pops a dialog box asking that the user permission to use the cookies, accept or allow. Request the user to click on it, which means to accept or allow. So here is an express consent example. Second is the implied consent, which means the indirect consent, like a situation in which a user actions imply that they agree to the collection, use or sharing of their personal data. Like, for example, when a user visits a website that sells products and add items to their shopping cart. As a result, the website processes their person's personal data such as their name, address, payment information in order to complete the transaction. The person implicitly consents to the processing of their personal data for the purpose of fulfilling the purchase. So this is known as the implied consent. Now we talk about opting consent. It refers to a situation in which a user actively chooses to agree to the collection, use or sharing of their personal data. Like for example, when signing up a newsletter, a user may be asked if they would like to receive marketing emails. If the user agrees, then this is an example of opt-in consent. Now we talk about the last consent, which is the opt-out consent. It refers to a situation in which an individual is automatically enrolled in the collection, use or sharing their personal data but has an option to withdraw the consent. Like for example, when a customer creates an account with a website, they may automatically enroll in the site's marketing emails but can choose to opt out and stop receiving. Also, we can consider another example like when an app collects data from analytics purpose and the user may be given the option to opt out of this data collection in the app setting can be considered as opt-out consent. In the concluding part, I could like to say that we understand that a consent must be free and voluntary, but in case of serious bodily injuries, the criminal law does not recognize the consent as a defense. The legal age of consent holds a profound significance both in India as well as the international stage. In India, the age of consent may be determined by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 and other relevant laws serves to protect the minors from potential exploitation while also respecting their evolving capacity for decision making. The nation's legal framework recognizes the importance of informed and voluntary consent in matters of sexual activity and relationship, and thereby promoting the individual autonomy while upholding the societal values. On the global scale, the concept of legal age of consent varies widely across the different jurisdictions, reflecting the diverse cultural norms, ethical consideration, and historical context. International discussions about the age of consent underscore the complexity inherent in balancing the rights of individuals to make their choices about their bodies with the need to safeguard the vulnerable populations. And these discussions are essential for fostering the dialogue, understanding and collaboration among the nations to develop a legal framework that strike a balance between a personal agency and societal well-being. Both at the national and international level, the exploration of the legal age of consent highlights the intricate interplay between the legal, ethical, cultural, and social factors, underscoring the importance of continuously adopting the laws to ensure the protection and empowerment for all the individuals, particularly the most vulnerable among the us. So, if you like, this content informative, then please don't forget to subscribe the channel after watching this video. Thank you.